It all started 3 minutes ago. A simple notification on phones across the world, yet it carried the weight of an empire. Prince Harry has been arrested. Just those 7 words sent shockwaves from Buckingham Palace to the farthest corners of social media. But why? How could a prince, a member of the most scrutinized family in modern history, suddenly find himself on the wrong side of the law? And more importantly, what hidden forces led to this unimaginable turn of events? The story that's about to unfold is not just about a man in trouble. It's about a labyrinth of secrets, financial maneuverings, betrayals, and power struggles that very few could have predicted. Behind the pomp, the crowns, and the cameras, there were whispers, leaks, documents, transactions that threatened to unravel everything. And Prince Harry? He became the center of a storm that might not have a safe harbor. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. Imagine the scene, the streets around the palace buzzing with journalists, helicopters slicing through the crisp London air, and the Royal Communications Office scrambling to release statements that barely scratched the surface of what was really happening. The public was confused. The media was relentless. And for Harry, the world had suddenly changed from a life under constant observation to one under an unprecedented legal microscope. But let's pause for a moment. Let's go deeper. Because the arrest itself isn't the shocking part. What really has the monarchy, the government, and global financial institutions on edge is what led to it. Leaked financial records suggesting Prince Harry may have been involved in laundering royal funds. Millions, possibly tens of millions, moving through obscure accounts. Transactions that seemed innocent at first glance, but on closer inspection, painted a picture of deliberate concealment. How did it all come to this? Was it desperation, greed, or something far more strategic, hidden beneath layers of privilege and power? As details slowly trickle in, one thing becomes clear. This story is not just about Harry's choices. It's about a network of people, a chain of decisions, and a scandal that could rock the monarchy to its very foundation. The leaks themselves were extraordinary. Secret bank statements, internal memos, and emails that seemed to have come from within the palace walls. Names, dates, and amounts meticulously recorded. To an outsider, it might have looked like a dry spreadsheet. But to investigators, journalists, and those close to the royal family, these documents were explosive. They revealed a pattern of behavior that no one expected from a prince who has long been portrayed as the empathetic, relatable royal. And the timing? Perfectly chaotic. Just as Harry had begun to carve out a more independent life away from the constant glare of royal tradition, these documents emerged, forcing him back into the spotlight under the darkest circumstances possible. Public trust hung in the balance. Royal reputation teetered on the edge. And for Harry, every decision from here on out would be scrutinized, dissected, and debated on a scale few could comprehend. You might be wondering, if these leaks are so damning, how did they surface? Who decided to expose them? And why now? The story behind the leaks is almost as fascinating as the revelations themselves. Sources claim that some documents were smuggled out by a palace insider disillusioned by years of tension and secrecy. Others suggest a calculated leak orchestrated by unknown parties with motives that remain murky. Some even point to rival financial entities using the situation to create chaos. Every theory adds layers of suspense and contradiction. And with each new detail, the narrative grows more complex and more compelling. But let's not forget the human side of this scandal. Prince Harry is more than a figurehead, more than a headline. He is a husband, a father, and a brother. The implications of this arrest are not just financial. They are intensely personal. Within the palace, there are whispers of late-night conversations, private confrontations, and tense family meetings. Emotional stakes are high. Loyalty is tested. And as these revelations hit the public sphere, the personal toll is impossible to ignore. How does one navigate being both a family man and a public figure under such intense scrutiny? Even now, speculation is rampant. Social media debates rage from one corner of the internet to another. Was Harry careless? Was he framed? Or is there a deeper conspiracy that no one outside the inner circles can yet understand? Each new post, each leaked image or headline adds fuel to a fire that seems impossible to contain. And as millions watch, the line between fact, rumor, and deception becomes increasingly blurred. What's certain is that the monarchy itself is under unprecedented pressure. For centuries, the royal family has balanced tradition, public service, and secrecy. But never has there been a moment quite like this, where one of their own stands accused of such serious wrongdoing, and the evidence is not just rumored, but documented in a way that leaves almost no room for plausible deniability. And yet, as damning as the financial records appear, they only tell part of the story. Behind every transaction is a motivation, a decision, and a series of events that led to it. Some argue that Harry was attempting to shield family assets from scrutiny, while others suggest more self-serving intentions. There's even evidence hinting at third parties who might have manipulated the situation for their gain, leaving Harry as both actor and victim in a high-stakes drama. As the world watches, one question looms larger than any other. What comes next? Will Harry face charges that could change the course of his life forever? How will the monarchy respond to the growing wave of scandal? And what secrets are still buried within the palace walls, waiting to surface at the most opportune or devastating moment? But even in this whirlwind, one thing is clear: the story is far from over. The leaked financial records, the arrests, the whispers from insiders, they are only the beginning. And what comes next will shock the public in ways that no one could have predicted. And just when you think you understand the scope of this scandal, just when you think you have a grasp on what's at stake, there is another revelation, another hidden thread in the web that threatens to upend everything you thought you knew. Because the truth about Prince Harry, the money, and the family dynamics is far more complicated than headlines suggest. And in the next chapters, we will pull back the curtain, piece by piece, to reveal secrets, betrayals, and shocking twists that could alter the monarchy forever. But what came next would change everything, and no one saw it coming. 3 minutes. That's all it took. 3 minutes from the moment the notification hit phones worldwide to the instant chaos erupted across London and beyond. Buckingham Palace had gone silent, but outside, the city was alive with a storm. Reporters dashed through the streets, cameras flashing, helicopters circling overhead like vultures drawn to a feast. And in the center of it all, Prince Harry, the man who had spent his life under scrutiny, suddenly became the subject of a legal nightmare that no royal advisor could have prepared him for. What exactly happened in those fateful hours leading up to the arrest? The story is complicated, but the first piece of the puzzle is shock, pure and simple. Sources claim that Harry's arrest was the culmination of weeks of secret investigations, fueled by whistleblowers inside the palace and meticulous financial forensics that traced unusual transactions through a tangle of offshore accounts. Every detail, every number, every signature was under the microscope. And the moment law enforcement decided to act, the palace had no choice but to comply. But the initial chaos wasn't just about documents and arrests. Emotion ran high, as it always does when the monarchy is involved. Imagine the inner corridors of Buckingham Palace that day. Aides rushing between offices, phones ringing off the hook, urgent messages sent to senior staff, family members huddled behind closed doors, trying to understand how a prince, someone they had known as compassionate, relatable, and above all loyal, could end up in such a position. The tension wasn't just administrative, it was deeply personal. Outside, the world reacted immediately. News outlets dropped breaking alerts. Headlines screamed betrayal and scandal. Social media exploded with speculation, memes, and wild theories. And viewers, millions of them, were left staring at their screens, trying to comprehend how a member of one of the most scrutinized families in history could suddenly be facing criminal charges. The arrest itself was carefully orchestrated, or so it appeared. According to multiple sources, a small team of law enforcement officers approached Harry at his private residence early in the morning. Witnesses reported a scene of quiet efficiency, almost surreal calm, as though the weight of history was being handled like a procedural formality. Harry complied without resistance, but the expressions on the faces of those around him suggested disbelief and fear. This wasn't supposed to happen. Not here. Not now. Not to him. And yet, despite the outward calm, the situation was anything but simple. Multiple palace insiders suggest that the arrest was the result of a bitter tug of war. Some family members allegedly wanted to handle the situation internally, shielding Harry from public humiliation. Others argued that failing to act would be a betrayal of duty, a breach of law, and a risk to the monarchy's global reputation. Every decision seemed to pit loyalty against legality, personal concern against public responsibility. What makes this scandal even more extraordinary is the contrast between public perception and private reality. To the world, Harry had long been framed as the sympathetic royal, the one who struggled with tradition, the one who fought for mental health awareness, the one who dared to carve out independence. Behind the palace walls, however, whispers tell a very different story. Those same sources hint at late-night meetings, hushed conversations about financial discrepancies, and mounting frustration among senior staff over Harry's alleged actions. The duality of perception versus reality created a tension that only amplified the shock of the arrest. Meanwhile, news outlets scrambled to piece together timelines and motives. Reporters combed through court filings, financial statements, and historical precedents. Every headline seemed more sensational than the last. Prince Harry arrested. Royal fund scandal. Money laundering allegations rock monarchy. But in reality, the story was far more nuanced. The documents, though damning, were just a part of a much larger puzzle, one that included international banking, offshore accounts, and internal palace conflicts. And let's not forget the emotional weight on Harry himself. According to insiders, he experienced a complex mix of fear, frustration, and disbelief. How does a man who has spent decades under constant public scrutiny process being accused of something so serious? How do you prepare for the cameras, the criticism, the whispers, and the inevitable public outrage? Every step, every glance, every word could be dissected in a court of law and in the court of public opinion simultaneously. The psychological pressure is almost unimaginable. Adding to the drama, there were reports that the day of the arrest was punctuated by conflicting messages. On one hand, senior palace staff tried to downplay the incident, emphasizing that procedures were being followed and that no one should jump to conclusions. On the other hand, leaks from unnamed sources painted a vivid picture of financial irregularities, secret accounts, and months of alleged mismanagement. This dual narrative only fueled speculation and kept the public glued to every update, wondering which story was the real one. And then there was the international angle. Governments, financial regulators, and even foreign media were monitoring the situation closely. Prince Harry is not just a British royal, he's a global figure. Any scandal involving him sends ripples across borders, affecting diplomatic relations, public perception, and international trust. Observers in finance capitals like New York, London, and Geneva began asking pointed questions about the movement of funds, the involvement of offshore banks, and the potential for criminal liability. As the hours unfolded, more shocking details emerged. Eyewitnesses reported unusual activity at various royal properties, security heightened, confidential meetings held behind closed doors, and couriers moving sensitive documents. All signs suggested that the palace was bracing for fallout, both internally and publicly. The tension was palpable, and yet, the media had already run with the story, leaving no room for careful handling or nuance. But perhaps the most startling aspect of all was the human element. Family members, staff, and close associates reportedly reacted with a mixture of shock, sadness, and anger. Some were accused of leaking information themselves, others of complicity in financial missteps, and a few were rumored to be maneuvering strategically for personal advantage. The palace, long a symbol of unity and tradition, was suddenly a battleground of conflicting loyalties and hidden agendas. Questions raced through the minds of the public. Was Harry guilty? Was he framed? Was this the result of internal palace politics, or had someone external orchestrated events for maximum damage? And as these questions swirled, the human drama continued to escalate. Social media polls, trending hashtags, and viral videos turned a legal issue into a global spectacle. Millions debated morality, legality, and loyalty, often without knowing the full story themselves. And just when the world thought they had seen it all, a new revelation surfaced. Reports suggested that the arrest might be only the beginning. Behind the headlines, investigators were allegedly uncovering a web of financial transactions and offshore accounts that hinted at a scale of activity far beyond what anyone had expected. Every lead seemed to point to a deeper conspiracy, a more tangled web, and a level of risk that could threaten not only Harry's reputation, but also the very credibility of the monarchy itself. What came next would take the shock of the arrest and multiply it, spiraling into a story of betrayal, secrecy, and scandal that no one, including Harry himself, could have anticipated. But that is a story for the next chapter, when the leaked financial records are revealed and the full scope of the scandal begins to emerge. But what came next would change everything, and no one saw it coming.